Hello, and welcome to Self-Awareness Path. Every day, countless people walk into rooms believing that everyone is watching them, judging them, and noticing every small detail: how they speak, how they walk, what they wear, and even the smallest mistakes they make. A tiny stain on a shirt suddenly feels enormous. A sentence spoken incorrectly echoes in the mind for hours. A moment of awkward silence seems unforgettable. Yet the surprising reality is that most of the time, almost no one notices these things at all. The human brain naturally assumes that others are paying far more attention to us than they truly are, and this psychological tendency shapes how we behave, how we feel, and how confident we allow ourselves to be. Psychologists call this phenomenon the spotlight effect. It is the mental illusion that places an imaginary spotlight over our heads, making us believe that we are the central focus of everyone's attention. The reason this happens is deeply connected to how human consciousness works. Each person experiences the world from their own perspective, living inside their own thoughts, emotions, and internal dialogue. Because we are constantly aware of ourselves, our movements, our appearance, our feelings, it becomes easy to assume that others are just as aware of us as we are. But what we often forget is that every other person is also living inside their own mental world, preoccupied with their own worries, plans, memories, and insecurities. In reality, while we are busy thinking about how we look, others are usually thinking about how they look. Imagine walking into a meeting and feeling that everyone is silently evaluating every step taken toward the chair. The heart beats slightly faster, the posture becomes tense, and even simple actions feel unnatural. But while this internal drama unfolds, the people in the room are often thinking about deadlines, personal responsibilities, or the next thing they need to say. Their attention shifts constantly, rarely staying focused on one individual for long. Yet the brain, guided by self-awareness, convinces us that all eyes remain fixed on us. This illusion plays a powerful role in social anxiety. Many individuals avoid opportunities, speaking up in discussions, trying new activities, meeting new people, because they fear being judged. The mind tells a story that if a mistake is made, everyone will remember it. But think about how many small mistakes others make every day. How often are those moments remembered, even a few hours later? Very rarely. The same applies to us. What feels unforgettable internally is often invisible externally. The spotlight effect also explains why embarrassment can feel so intense. When something awkward happens, such as mispronouncing a word or dropping something in public, the mind instantly magnifies the event. It feels as though the moment has been recorded in everyone's memory. Yet most observers forget the incident almost immediately because it simply does not matter in the context of their own lives. Understanding this difference between perception and reality can be deeply liberating. It shows that the pressure we feel is often created not by others, but by the assumptions of our own minds. There is an evolutionary reason behind this mental bias. Human survival historically depended on social belonging. Being accepted by the group meant safety, while rejection could mean danger. As a result, the brain developed a strong sensitivity to social evaluation. Even today, in modern environments where survival rarely depends on group approval, the ancient emotional systems remain active. They continue to treat small social situations as if they carry enormous consequences, exaggerating how much attention others give us. The brain is trying to protect us, but in doing so, it sometimes creates unnecessary fear. Another important factor is that we remember our own experiences far more vividly than we remember others' experiences. When we make a mistake, we replay it repeatedly in our minds, strengthening the memory and making it feel significant. Because we remember it so clearly, we assume others must remember it just as strongly. However, others do not replay the moment the way we do. For them, it passes quickly, often disappearing entirely from memory. This difference creates a gap between how visible we think our actions are and how visible they actually are. Recognizing the spotlight effect does not mean that people never notice us. Of course, in certain situations, attention does focus on individuals, during presentations, performances, or important conversations. But even in those moments, attention is not as constant or as critical as we often imagine. People's thoughts wander, their focus shifts, and their interpretations are usually far less harsh than the ones we create inside our own minds. We tend to judge ourselves more severely than anyone else does. This insight carries an important message about freedom. If most people are not paying as much attention to us as we believe, then many of the fears that hold us back lose their power. Trying something new, expressing opinions, wearing what we like, or starting conversations becomes easier when we realize that the invisible audience we fear is mostly an illusion. Confidence grows not because others suddenly approve of us more, but because we understand that constant judgment was never as intense as we thought. There is also a deeper lesson hidden within this phenomenon. Just as others are not constantly focused on us, we are not constantly focused on them either. Everyone shares the same psychological experience of being at the center of their own mental world. This means that most people carry their own spotlight illusion, worrying about how they appear while assuming others are paying close attention. When we see this clearly, social interactions begin to feel less intimidating. Instead of imagining a crowd analyzing every move, we begin to see individuals who are just as human, just as uncertain, and just as absorbed in their own thoughts as we are. Reducing the influence of the spotlight effect requires gentle mental training. One powerful approach is to intentionally observe how little attention we actually give to small mistakes others make. When someone says the wrong word or wears something unusual, the moment passes quickly and rarely changes how we feel about them. By noticing this pattern repeatedly, the mind gradually learns that the same is true in reverse. Another approach is to deliberately place attention outward rather than inward. When we focus on the conversation, the environment, or the people around us, instead of monitoring ourselves constantly, self-consciousness naturally decreases. Over time, understanding this psychological bias can transform daily experiences. Walking into a room becomes less stressful. Speaking in front of others becomes less frightening. Small imperfections begin to feel normal rather than catastrophic. Life starts to feel more open because the invisible pressure created by imagined attention begins to fade. Confidence then grows not from perfection, but from acceptance, the acceptance that mistakes are rarely as visible as we think, and even when they are noticed, they are quickly forgotten. There is also a powerful emotional benefit in remembering that others are not watching as closely as we assume. It allows authenticity to replace performance. Instead of constantly trying to manage how we appear, we begin to act more naturally, speak more honestly, and express ourselves more freely. Ironically, this authenticity often makes social interactions more positive because people tend to respond better to those who appear relaxed and genuine rather than tense and overly self-monitoring. The spotlight effect teaches an essential truth about perception. What feels intensely real inside the mind is not always equally real in the outside world. Our internal awareness magnifies our presence in our own experience, creating the illusion that we are equally magnified in everyone else's experience. But in reality, each person carries their own spotlight, shining mainly on their own concerns. Recognizing this shared human condition reduces unnecessary pressure and creates a sense of connection rather than isolation. We begin to understand that everyone is navigating similar fears, even if they are hidden beneath calm appearances. When this understanding becomes deeply internalized, a subtle shift happens. Instead of asking, "What are they thinking about us?" the question becomes, "What meaningful action can be taken right now?" Attention moves away from imagined judgment and toward purposeful living. Opportunities that once felt intimidating begin to look manageable, and experiences that were avoided out of fear become possible. The realization that most people are too busy living their own lives to analyze ours can feel like a quiet form of freedom. In the end, the mind's tendency to exaggerate how much others notice us is not a flaw. It is simply a byproduct of being human. Awareness of this bias allows us to gently question our assumptions and respond differently to situations that once triggered anxiety. Instead of shrinking under the imaginary spotlight, we can step forward knowing that the light is far dimmer than we believed. And when we understand that everyone else is standing under their own imagined spotlight as well, compassion grows, both toward others and toward ourselves. The next time the feeling appears that everyone is watching closely, it can be helpful to pause and remember a simple truth. While we are thinking about how we appear, most people are thinking about how they appear. And in that shared human distraction, far more freedom exists than we usually realize. Thanks for watching. Your support is crucial to us at Self-Awareness Path. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to stay updated and help our channel grow. Don't forget to like and share. It shows your appreciation and boosts our visibility. We value your feedback or any suggestions you might have, so drop a comment. Explore more content on our channel. There's plenty to discover. Thanks for being part of our community, and see you in the next video.